Welcome to the second in a series of 8 introductions to the all-natural meanings discussed in Meaning in the Multiverse, a skeptic's guide to a loving cosmos. This is the panpsychic cog in the machine meaning. Again, as a understanding and an explanation of where these meanings come from, I want to briefly talk about all of the meanings in Meaning in the Multiverse. They are all metaphysical speculations, and so that is not to say that they are outside of the realm of the natural world or some sort of new agey experiment, but these are actual philosophical metaphysics where they are beyond science, where the science is at now. So they may be where the science gets to in 100 years of further study and integration between the science of the mind, computational science, as well as modern physics. They might be 500 years out. These are just speculations, again, of where the science can get to and how that might impact our lives and a better life of the mind, a better examined life for people in the here and now. These also are all natural meanings. So that means that we're not going to be going into a supernatural realm of gods and goddesses in order to garner this meaning. As a matter of fact, these meanings are going to be sometimes more profound than the meanings that were divined 2,000 plus years ago from the early histories of man. And so we are going to be only looking at what is possible and what is natural for the universe to convey as far as meaning. And I can tell you it is wondrous. We're going to be talking about 2 different types of meaning. We're going to be talking about truly universal meaning, or like we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about a prevalent personal meaning, one that is going to approach universal meaning because of how many different minds that it impacts, but it is not necessarily from the universe or the multiverse for that matter. And finally, we're going to be talking about works or grace meanings. These are the typical religious terms, and the way that I think about those are for a works meaning, it is a meaning for the multiverse. This is something that the multiverse has us doing in order to impact its meaning. And then grace meanings are purely from the multiverse and something that it is granting to us. The meaning that we're going to talk about today, the panpsychic cog in the machine meaning, comes from a concept in metaphysics known as idealism, which basically says that the fundamental component of reality is consciousness or information, in this case consciousness. So what we're going to be talking about is the idea that not matter and energy, not dark matter or dark energy is the fundamental constituent of the universe, but instead consciousness, the experience of what it is like to be something, is the most fundamental component in the universe. The scientific backing for this, thanks to conscious naturalism, is a great first step in this field that gives scientific backing to the metaphysical speculation on idealism. And we're going to go through the meaning that I call the panpsychic cog in the machine. The idea here is that panpsychism is this idea that all things are conscious, whether it is the smallest molecule or superstring on up to the dendrites and neurons that make up your brain, your phone, yourself, the planets, or the universe itself. All of those things are conscious. Now, this is a prevalent personal meaning, like we said, because there is no known mechanism, at least at this point in time in science, to have an understanding between these conscious cogs of how they are conscious. We only can know our own experience and that we have consciousness thanks to the fact that it is first person in its very nature. By definition, conscious experience is first person. And so we can no more know if our phones or our computers are conscious than we can know, even though we created those, then we can know that atoms or dendrites or superstrings are conscious themselves. So in a panpsychic universe where all things are conscious, you have a prevalent personal meaning where you get meaning from being conscious, from having first person experience, having the ability to love and have profound experiences of transcendence as a conscious entity. And what we can do is we can imagine that all entities in a panpsychic universe would have some personal meaning, making it a prevalent personal meaning, a universal type meaning to the limit that all things are actually conscious. So in the text, the panpsychic cog in the machine, meaning, assuming that everything has some experience, sets humanity's consciousness up as a small part of a greater consciousness, the experience of the universe. We play a small but important role in this greater multidimensional consciousness compared to the role a single brain cell's panpsychic experience plays in your overall consciousness. So again, thinking about a single neuron in your brain and its experience as to your experience for the entire universe. Again, from the text for Meaning in the Multiverse, available on the 12th of February 2021 on Darwin Day. First, let's take the brain-based explanation for experience. This materialistic argument says that slowly evolved, embodied feelings created new maps of information which were encoded on our brains and to a lesser extent higher mammals and birds, and grew into our consciousness. All of this happens through the same feed-forward feedback recognition engine that allows us to move, read, or speak, namely as a function of the neurochemical processes in the brain. If the ghost of experience is run in the machine of the brain, then the gears and sprockets of this machine are the molecules of the neurons and neurotransmitters. These molecules follow certain processes based upon their shape and composition. The second concept, one that we'll continue to return to for the tough questions it requires, is that of panpsychism. Panpsychism is the concept that all entities have some level of experience. Ants experience what it is like to be an ant. Atoms experience what it is like to be an atom. Granted, these levels of experience are likely not as profound as ours, given their memory restrictions, but it does philosophically close the case on the first question we want to ask other articulate species. Can you experience? Since the second is, yeah, us too, all the way down to suffering, so let's not do that to one another, capiche? Panpsychism is a consistent philosophical stance considering the fact that no objective test exists to unearth the degree of subjective experience of an entity and a lack of mechanism where consciousness arises from some level of information processing. That is to say that without a robust understanding of what is conscious and how they became that way, it is more logically consistent to say that everything is conscious. The discussion for panpsychism always goes down and talks about earthworms' experience, but far more interesting and less grimy is going up and considering if the universe itself is part of the panpsychic panoply. Obviously, if something as complex as the entire universe is on the subjective spectrum, we are not on the tail of the distribution that includes the most conscious of entities. Just as an earthworm's subjective experience cannot imagine the experience of the Dalai Lama, neither can His Holiness comprehend the experience of the universe. If the universe has extra dimensions, supersymmetries, or parallel universes, it would also have experiences of this existence. Some of religion's most memorable speculations on God's experience, like the scripture that states that one day is like 1,000 years, are as underwhelming as the rest of the imaginings of pre-scientific nomads. If you think it is hard to discern if your wife sees the same color when looking at the millionth blouse in a department store, the difficulty of contemplating supreme consciousness is infinitely worse. Until you can switch places with other entities and remain conscious of your own nature, possibly by plugging into a VR world like in Being John Malkovich, you'll never know for sure. And moreover, it would not be the same as just being John Malkovich. It would be you being John Malkovich, a wholly different and problematic conscious experience. However, we do not have to understand the experience of supreme consciousness to dig deeper on the thought experiment. We just need to grant that inside a panpsychist's brain, each of the components have a consciousness analog to how we have a consciousness and exist as a carbon-based life form inside the supremely conscious universe. What do you know of the atoms within inside the dendrites in your brain? Do their modest experiences impact yours? You might not think so, but we really don't know. If the atoms in question are in the neuroplasticity formed during your most mindful moments or flow moments, and this is the majority of the time that they are activated, is it their bottom-up excellence enabling your optimal experience? Top-down, do they feel special, chosen in some way? Does the analogy between us and our atoms break down because we are at the low end of subjective experience and the idealistic universe is able to be mindful of its components, experience, and its own? We have developed some clever experiments to find uncommunicative conscious components within our own brains, and so we have some insight into what it might be like to have conscious subsystems and operating systems all in one. As we've discussed before, there is on the left a flow experience, and on the right a mindful experience that can lead to personal meaning. Inside the panpsychic cog in the machine meaning, this can be as profound as in those periods of flow that, like was stated in the text, you might be firing on a level that the entire universe can understand and fill, in sort of that you are the most well-greased of those entities experiencing in the supremely conscious universe. You might become so well attuned in flow to existence or so mindful of your own experience that you actually transcend your personal meaning and are actually able to impact the meaningfulness and the experience of a supremely conscious universal being. This is, again, something to speculate on and to try and understand yourself in this greater meaning as, trying to achieve those flow states and build that conscious experience will ultimately impact larger systems of meaning. And so this and 7 other meanings are available inside of the work Meaning in the Multiverse, A Skeptic's Guide to a Loving Cosmos. This book is launching on Darwin Day, the 12th of February, 2021. You can see the pricing information, and it's available on justinaharnish.com/shop. Thank you very much for taking the time today to learn about the panpsychic cog in the machine meaning, and we'll be back soon with another of the meanings in the multiverse. Thank you.